Hey everybody, welcome to episode 86. Today we're going to finally do the Wolverine graphic novel, or specifically the limited series from 1982. Finally finished it up this afternoon at lunchtime, so I figured now it's fresh in my head, so I might as well do it today and get this one done. If anybody's not familiar with this version, this is the version that I ordered, and the reason why is because I had the originals. Those were probably some of the first comic books I ever got, and specifically they were the first comics I ever sought out at a comic book shop, quote unquote. The comic book shop that wasn't fully a comic book shop, but it was the first time not buying something off a spinner rack or not buying something out of a box on the floor next to all the current comics at a bookstore. It was the first time I actually learned about values of comics, like that they had, that they were worth more than what they were. Obviously, because of the comic books buyer's guide, little paper newsprint, little magazine that they put out, and and so I got a copy of that. I think the friend who took me off to comics, I think he had a copy of it. And I didn't even know about this comic existed. Remember, I just learned that Wolverine really existed at this time, and this would have been 1984. This comic, of course, came out in 1982, so it was still fairly new. I mean, it was only a couple of years old, but you obviously couldn't get it on the spinner racks. And like I said, the only reason I think I even knew about it was because I think I looked in one of the comic books I currently had at the time, and in the Mile High Buyer's Guide little listing, they showed down, obviously with W, it said Wolverine 1 through 4 limited series. And I learned that existed, and then I went, obviously it was the first and foremost thing, because like I said, at this time, this is 1984, Wolverine was my absolute all-time favorite character. And he was new. I mean, he was new to me. I didn't know who he was up until this time. Like I said, I got the Wolverine. Probably what did it for me outside of the comics, of course, was the Secret Wars, the Mattel Secret Wars Wolverine action figure, which I don't have. I didn't pull a picture up of it. I think I showed it to you before. But yeah, they had an action figure for him with little claws that you put on him, and I was like, who is this character? And that's when I learned of characters like Baron Zemo, the Hobgoblin, one of my other all-time favorite villains at that time, and for a while, too. I just loved the Hobgoblin. I don't know, something about him over the Green Goblin just totally resonated with me, and I loved the whole mythos behind him and how he, and that stuff. But for Wolverine, I wanted to seek this comic out. So before I get into it, let me just pause right there. And first, remember, like and subscribe if you like this video, so you can help me keep it going here. Got a couple more subscribers over the course of yesterday and today. But let's do a little unboxing real quick, or unbagging, or whatever you want to call it. I think you just tear this one open. Yeah. This should be another trade paperback. The Exterminators 1 through 5 series that came out at the tail end of last year, beginning of this year. Sorry, I gotta smell them. I love smelling. I'm part dog, so so yeah, I'm gonna definitely read through this weekend and do these pages look amazing in this. I know that the newer paper and stuff, pages look really amazing, but this real extra gloss paper, I'm not going to give it away yet, but oh man, it just looks amazing, and the artwork in here is awesome. But yeah, I'm going to definitely do this next. Like I said, outside of so far of 2023, I kind of went back and I looked at everything of 2023 from Marvel, DC, the whole 9 yards. And I think number one, this is probably my favorite thing that came out all year. This actually came out this year. Like I said, the comic kind of started at the tail end of last year, And I think the 5th issue, I think, was in January of this year, so just at the beginning of the year. And then, of course, they always follow them up with the trade paperback. So this trade paperback should say copyright 2023. It does. First printing 2023. There you go. So got that. Like I said, it was about $14-ish with tax, almost 15, or right around 15. I think, I can't remember what it was. It's, normally I think I sell for $17.99, so I got a few bucks off of it. Remember me, I like to get a little bit of a deal. It's just, there's so much about the what do you call it, the parallels with this and the Reform School Crow comic that I did. I should go grab a copy of that. I'll do that when I do it doesn't need to do that now, but when I do that comic, I'm going to pull up my Reform School Girl comic, and I'm going to show you, the yellow and the pink, the whole 9 yards. I mean, it's so much like this book, it's not even funny. The story's not the same, but it's just, it's so weird. But we'll get to that one eventually. So, like I said, we're back onto the Wolverine book. So again, let me tell you, if you didn't watch my other video where I mentioned this story, it's kind of buried deep in my Discovering Comics video, which is a while back. Let me just tell you the story again. So, not the whole comic book story, just the Wolverine part. So again, I just learned of comics. I just learned of Wolverine. I just started collecting the X-Men regularly in '84. And I think, like I said, I still could, without going to seek them out, the Rochester Book Center there across from Rochester High School, they had boxes of the comics, and some of the ones packed to 3 in a pack. And I remember getting the first appearance of Rogue was in there, because that was still fairly current. A bunch of other comics right around that time. So, but this wasn't there. And I didn't, like I said, I didn't know about this until I looked in the, I'm pretty sure that's how I discovered it. And then I asked somebody, hey, have you guys ever seen the Wolverine miniseries? And they're like, oh, you got to skip that. That's awesome. And they must have either saw it or whatnot. Yeah, I had to have it. So I remember at this particular time, this would have been 1984. I said the comic book. I didn't even know what a comic book shop was then. I didn't know about Dave's Comics in Royal Oak. I didn't know the Comics Corner didn't open until 1990. I didn't know what a comic book shop was. I said, what, they have a shop where they sell comics? And at that specific time, my dad didn't have the sports card store, and I knew of there was a sports memorabilia place up in Meadowbrook Mall that I think they had cards, but they had everything, jerseys, plates, all those commemorative things. The store that eventually his partner wanted to open up, which my dad kind of shied away from all that other stuff. He just did specifically just the cards. He had a couple of I had a signed Ron Hextall hockey puck that he put in the shop just because I had it. He put that up there. I had another Ron Hextall signed 8x10 glossy. I think I had a couple other, and I had John Casey. I loved the goalies back then. And probably most of that was because of Casey Jones from what do you call it? That and the movie First Blood with Rob Lowe. I loved the goalie masks. They just with the skull on it, and I just love that. Anyways, I'm so much like my son. It's not even funny. Or my son's so much like me. Yeah. So I wanted this. I learned of Troy Stamp and Coin, and I believe this isn't the trip that I tricked. I remember I tricked my uncle. I tricked him, but my dad's brother. I said, "Hey, can you take me up to a place called Troy Stamp and Coin? It's just past Myers." I don't know if you've been to Rochester on Rochester Road there between Rochester and Troy, but the Meyer is at Auburn and Rochester, kind of where my mom lives now. And the Meyer was brand new at the time. Oh, no, the Meyer wasn't even there. Because that's how I know this wasn't the tricking. The Meyer wasn't even there yet. So this is how I know that I wasn't tricking my uncle to go to that store. Also because that Troy Stamp and Coin that we went to in '84 was, what do you call it? It was at the old store. So if anybody's ever been to Troy Stamp and Coin, I guess I'll get into a little bit of my Troy Stamp and Coin, but again, I don't want to tell the story in too much detail because I want to get onto this, but But yeah, I didn't like the people that ran the place. But it was my first experience, which was a bad experience with comic book, resale shops or comic book shops, quote unquote. Because like I said, they did everything. They had stamps, they had coins, they had the whole, the Hummels, everything, plates, you name it. But they had a comic book section. They had a lot of comic books. So I went up there. I sort of been with my dad. I think he still had the AMC Eagle at the time. I know it was close to... Yeah, he had it up until it died, and then he ended up getting a Chevette. But anyways, actually had a Firebird brief. I won't get into that story, but anyways. So he took me up there, and he was interested too, because, obviously he was into the collecting the sports cards. And he goes, yeah, let's go take a look at this place. He didn't like the guy either right off the bat. But I go up there, and I step up to the plate, as it were, the counter in the back. And there was a younger guy working there at the time, young-ish, probably in his early 20s. To me, he's 40, I was that age. And I said, hey, I'm looking for a comic book limited series. Hey, what are you looking for? And I go, the Wolverine limited series. He gives me that look. He's like, the Wolverine limited series? I think we got that. He was all smug about it, too. Like, this kid wants the good stuff. So anyways, I go, yeah. And he goes, let me go look, let me go see. And he goes out there, and I see him. There was a box. It was kind of like there was a bunch of boxes along this like kind of hallway back room. And here's the counter, which like glass counter with stuff in it, coins and stamps and stuff. And they had 3 spinner racks of comics right here. And then they had some back issues, but not a lot out there. You basically had anything you wanted, you asked them for it, and they would go get it. And this guy, I saw him walk back. There was on like 2 up. That's how good my memory is. There was like 2 up from the floor in a long box. He pulls it out. It must have been W. Anyways, I see him in there. He's like, I see him pull out, I think was number 2. I think I saw him pull out 2, and I'm like, just like, just like my hands are sweaty. I'm just like, And then I see him pull out another one, and he goes up there, he's like, he pulls out another one, and then he pulls out number 1. I saw number 1, I was like, And so anyways, I had never seen the comics up until this point. I didn't know what they were. I just know what I was looking at. I was just like, I'm like I said, my eyes were laser focused. He was about 20 feet away from me, and I was laser focused on what he was doing. He could tell, I was just like, my dad looking at me like I'm nuts. So he comes out. Actually, my dad was over looking at something. He was kind of paying attention. He didn't want me to get ripped off, but he was kind of paying attention, looking at something else. Anyways, and he goes, yep, got him right here. And they were all bagged, too, with actual comic book bags. This is, I got to say, at this time, 1984, I didn't see a lot of comic book boards. I don't think, for me, I didn't start buying comic book boards until like 87, 88. They must have existed. Correct me if I'm wrong, if you older than me and you kind of know this, but nobody really had comic book boards. Most of it was just bags, single bags taped over once, in long boxes. I think they did it because they needed to pack more comics in a. They're going to stay flat anyways, but they needed more room in these things, so they had limited space. Just adding boards would have just added to that. But that wasn't commonplace. And like I said, I didn't have boards then. It was just bags. And that was new. That was a new thing to me. Like, what are these comic book bags? These things are neat. You get a whole bag of them. A whole bag of 100 of them for $3. That's how cheap they were back then. And anyways, so he brought the comics out. He was up there. And of course, this is the thing that Terry Stamp and Coin is. They go off guide. They don't discount. They don't look at, they don't wheel and deal. You're paying guide prices, and they just assume everything they have is in mint condition. They give you like very good, acceptable. And no matter what they had, everything to them is in mint condition, and you pay guidebook. Right from the buyer's guide. That's exactly what you pay. And at the time, like number 1 was, all of them together came to be under $10 still, but I think number 1 was the most expensive at like $4. I think number 2, remember, these were 75 cents, 65 cents. What were the 60 cents was the cover on these. So, if you were to find these in the store, you just paid 60 cents. I think they wanted like $4 from number 1. And so my dad looks at it and goes, how much is it? It was like It was under 10. I can't remember exactly. Most of them were at least a couple of bucks for each comic. Shows how long ago this is. I don't even know what they go for nowadays. These are all first prints, you know. These are, and they were in good. I mean, they were. I wouldn't say they're mint, but they were probably very good condition, if not near mint. Because Tri-State, one thing I gotta say is, even though they did pay arm and a leg, you didn't really. They usually kept all their stuff in really good condition. They were pretty sticklers about it. So, anyways, and my dad's like, "All right, well, is that all you're gonna get?" And I'm like thinking, like, "Can I get more?" And I'm like, "No, that's what I'm looking for." He's, "All right, let's get these." And I think my dad bought a bunch of packs of Fleer baseball cards or something at the time. You know, I had to get them out. I had to get it out in the car. You know, sitting there looking through it, and the cover I mean, that number 1 cover. I'll show you that in just a minute. That just blew me away. Actually, they have it in here on the first, in the inside piece. So this graphic novel, this came out in '87, and I ended up getting a copy of this back in '87, and then there was a little bit of a weirdness with me and a friend of mine from the trailer park about this comic book. I'll get into that a little bit. Essentially, I bought this, and then I traded it to him, right, for some, because we were all about trading back and forth. And I was at his apartment, or his trailer, and in his room, and I wanted it back, and I knew he wasn't going to trade it, so I just took it. You know, I put it in my stuff, and I took it home, and he didn't know that I was gone for the longest time until he came over one day, and it's like, you always get kind of nervous, like, oh, he's going to go through my comics and see the stuff that I took from him, and then he's like, hey, you took that from me, and I'm like, no, I didn't, and he's like, yeah, he goes, you traded that, and I go, no, I didn't trade it, I just let you borrow it, I was just making, I knew I traded it to him, so there's a little thing about that, with that one buddy, but yeah, we used to trade back. We used to fight and trade and steal from each other and, wrestle and everything. We're young boys. Yeah, so I just remember that. And the other thing I remember is the reason I wanted it back was because I was at one of the comic shops and I found a poster of this Frank Miller poster. And I had this like little cubby area in my room in the trailer, and I had I had an X-Men poster, and I had this poster here, and I put the poster up. I was like, oh, I gotta get that graphic novel back now that I got the poster. Yeah, so I just bought this off Thrift Books. I remember if you remember me, I just ordered it. They finally showed up. They said, hey, we got a copy. I think it was $10. It's 5 covers, so it wasn't too far off. Twice as much as in good condition. There's the only issue. There's a little bit of a rip in the back cover, but not bad. Other than that, put that stupid sticker on it. But no, it's in great shape. It looks really good. So it collects, of course, obviously all 4 issues. So I told you enough of that story. I guess that's how I acquired. And like I said, I don't know where it went. It was one of the comics that I had in the early '90s when I ended up purging because my dad told me to purge while the getting's good. Well, I think I had this back at some point. I don't know if I bought another copy of it, but the original series that I had, I remember that was one of the things I got top dollar for even back then, more than my dad paid for it. So that was one of the things that went out in that purge. I wish I would, obviously all that stuff, even my dad's stuff, we just kept it. It's all coming back. So I mean, it would, I'm talking. My dad had a stack of Sergei Fedorov rookie cards. The only guy got it because I liked hockey, but he didn't really specialize in hockey. I would try to make him specialize in hockey, but he didn't get a lot of the hockey stuff. But he had a stack of Score Sergei Fedorov rookie cards about that high, probably like an entire set of cards of just rookie cards of one card. He had an entire stack of Ken Griffey Jr. Upper Deck. Those are like, I don't know what those go for now. I know they lost their value in the 90s, but now they're probably worth $100 a piece. Stack. I mean, literally, like what is that, about 1,000 cards? Barry Bonds. I mean, oh my God, the cards he had was just insane. I mean, he got out while they were still worth a lot. They weren't obviously worth $100 a piece, but I think they were like $20 a piece. Sold them all. Just think how much money that for one card. I mean, bunch of books, which is one specific card, a stack of them. He just wheeled and dealed. He was always a wheeling and dealing. Every trade show, everywhere, he'd pick up a couple more for nothing. I'll get a couple more Barry Bonds, a couple more Ken Griffey Jr.'s, blah, 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 blah. You know, he got me my John Casey rookie card. He got me my Ron Hextall rookie card. He got me my Tim Chevrolet. Well, actually, I got the Tim Chevrolet rookie card myself. Hextall, Casey, you know, a bunch of my favorite goalies. But anyways, let's get back into this. I keep getting sidetracked. So I got the CBR, and these are the CBR, the individual issues, and I do have a better picture of that cover that I'll use for my thumbnail, and I'll show you guys that here. So let's go to the folder that they're in. That's this cover here. So I'll use that for this image for the thumbnail. It's a pretty decent sized one. So Frank Miller art. You know, this is you know, just after. I mean, this cover was just after Dark Knight had come out, but obviously he did the comic before he did Dark Knight, and before Ronin, I believe before Ronin. But I loved this cover, and I loved his artwork at that time. I loved the Dark Knight, and I loved the cover, and I loved the story. I loved everything about it. I mean, it's one of the ones I still have to get. Loved it then. I still holds up today. Like I said, I'm so Batmaned out, but I can still say that I still like the Dark Knight. But like Watchmen, I feel that, and like Frank Miller in general, and guys like Alan Moore, I believe that they're part of the problem of why I don't like modern comics. I mean, in comparison, you know, modern comics I like, but I'm just saying is I call to those issues or those books and the specific creators to be the downfall, even before the Image guys kind of F things up in the 90s. Yeah, so, you know, it was really weird how the Image Comics and Upper Deck, and I think they eventually somehow, they were almost like the same company. One was like the comic book, you know, premium douchebag, you know, company, and Upper Deck was the premium douchebag sports cards, and you know, of course McFarlane being the sports fan he is too, they kind of interspliced. But I blame Image and Upper Deck both for destroying the for the speculator boom just blowing up in the you know, in the 90s. I mean, obviously Marvel had a lot to do with it too, and DC was doing stupid things too as well. But I just when I think of the face of the 90s and the face of the speculator bubble bursting, it's Upper Deck and Image Comics. That's the to me, that's the face of the evil cloud, you know, evil, you know, whatever. But so yeah, so we got that cover there, and again, the thing about this thing is I love this artwork. I don't like Frank. I mean, I like the Dark Knight, but after the Dark, I hated Sin City. Couldn't stand it. Didn't like 300 really. I didn't like, and his new his artwork now is just. I mean, he's older, and there's something wrong with him. I don't know exactly what it is. He's got cancer or MS or something, but obviously something wrong with him. So you kind of, you know, I'm not going to pick on an old man, but his artwork now is atrocious. But at this time, when he was a young, you know, upcomer, at this time, this is when he did good stuff. This is when he was started to work on. This was before Dark Knight. This is when he was working on. I believe he was working on Daredevil before Dark Knight. Now, I'm not a huge Daredevil fan, and I'm not a huge even the Frank Miller stuff. I find it to be way too Catholic-y, if you know what I mean. It's just so Catholic-y. I'm sick of the Catholicness in it. Not that I have anything against Catholicism, and I'm not Catholic. I never have been. But it's just like, I'm so sick of hearing about this Catholic bullshit. It gets on my nerves after a while. It's like, that's something wasn't interested in then, and I'm not interested in now, and therefore you put this heavy Catholic stuff into it. It's funny because I like the band Ghost, and they seem to be all Satanism, anti-Catholic and stuff. Maybe that's why I like it, because it's kind of fighting the Catholicism, but I'm not. I mean, not any of that stuff. But anyways, let's get into the comics. We're already 25 minutes in, so I should be able to get through most of these. I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna go note for note I'm going to flip through the pages, but I'm not going to tell you exactly how the story is. I'm just going to show you elements of the stories, why this couldn't have come out. I couldn't have discovered this at a better time. I mean, I was primed, locked, cocked, and ready to rock. I mean, at this time, I'm 11 years old. I haven't hit puberty yet. I'm pretty close to hitting it. So, like I said, this is back when I wasn't just all about the female characters. This is like when I actually liked the dude characters. And I saw Wolverine, saw that haircut, saw the sideburns, saw the claws. I mean, it was just like, I got it. That guy's my favorite. And so, in this comic here, holy shit! I mean, this was the thing that did it. And to this day, I gotta say, I don't know why. I don't know if it's a contractual thing or it's just a hubris thing on the part of the Marvel Studios, what it is. Just do this frickin' story. If you want to make a movie and sell, and it's a layup. I mean, this is a gold mine. Just do the Chris Claremont, Frank Miller limited series and just make it a theatrical production. And follow it. Don't do stupid shit. Don't get all weird. Follow this. These comics should be your storyboards. Follow these exactly. Like this picture here, you see here, right? That's going to be a shot. See his the color of his jacket? That's the color his jacket's going to be. That's the color his gloves are going to be. That's the color I want you to light the mountain. I want that mountain. Make that mountain out of 3D or whatever you're going to make it out of. Make that mountain. You know, get your whatever your thing that they used, that crazy contraption they use now to make Disney, you know, make the Star Wars stuff, that whatever that screen thing, names escapes me at the moment, but get that thing, get some 3D modelers and program them. I want that mountain to look exactly like that mountain. I want that exact shot. I want that to be a scrolling shot. Like I said, I want this bear to be that color bear. You know, make this, rim light everything with yellow. I want it to look exactly like this, as close as possible. I don't care I don't care if it's Hugh Jackman, you know, if it's Harry Potter kid or whoever it is. Cast somebody who looks like this Wolverine and give him that haircut. Yes, that's what I want. I want him to fight that bear. Wait, I want him to have that hat on. I want this red. I want this black silhouette against this red in the cave. I want that as a shot. That's how I would make this movie, note for note. So. Yeah, anyway, so back to it here. It kind of starts out where he's tracking this bear that's doped up, that this hunter shot or whatever, blah, blah, blah. So here's the thing, and this is kind of my commentary about why I think a lot of things suck nowadays and why specifically dudes kind of don't have anything anymore. And it's just, you know, you got to think of the 80s, right? All the hyper-masculine 80s, the toxic masculinity of the 80s, you know, where you've got Rambo, you've got Command, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, you've got Miami Vice, you've got all of these just male power fantasies where, you know, they think, I want to be the, you know, Top Gun. I mean, you know, that's a male power fantasy. All these male power fantasies, you know, where a guy can, you know, who's, you know, sitting in his recliner, you know, his wife's burnt the scrambled eggs, you know, wife's burnt the pot roast, you know, she's arguing, yelling at him about something, and he just tunes her out, right? He flips on, you know, whatever, Beretta, or flips on something, I'm going to watch Death Wish tonight, right? I'm going to watch Death Wish and Dirty Harry back to back. I want to see some hyper-masculine dude beating the shit or blowing the hell away from a bunch of other bad guys, the people who did him wrong, right? I want him to get the girl, you know, I want him to save the hot chick, you know, I want him to, you know, get in a fight with the main bad guy at the end and kill him, right? And I wanted it brutal, and I wanted gory, I want violent, you know, you know who would be perfect for this? Quentin Tarantino. To direct this. I don't like Quentin Tarantino, just like I don't really like Frank Miller anymore. What I'm just saying is, I'm just, you know, throwing out my fantasy production here. You get Quentin Tarantino to make this movie, right? Hopefully Frank Miller's still alive at the time they do this. Quentin Tarantino sit down, because Quentin Tarantino, Frank Miller, Todd McFarlane, all of these, Joe Satriani, there's a lot of these guys that all look the same, and they don't really look the same, but they all just remind me of like one specific archetype. It's usually just some douchebag guy that's full of himself that actually does have talent, though. But yeah, you get Quentin Tarantino to direct this, and he makes it brutal. You know, when he severs off the bear's arm, I mean, it sprays blood, halfway down the street, right? That's what I want to see, right? That's what I'm saying. The male power. He goes into a bar. Who doesn't want to go into a bar and just beat the shit out of everybody, right? You just want to go in there and take all the douchebags and just pound the fuck out of them. That's what you want to do. That's what male power fantasy is, you know. And of course, there's the hot, you know, if you're a Vietnam vet, obviously, you know, you probably got your hot favorite. Probably took leave from Vietnam and on a 2-day weekend leave, went up to Japan. You know what I mean? Had some Japanese prostitute who's probably Filipino, wasn't even Japanese, who wore a kimono and stuff, and you know, you got that whole thing. But you know, you're at this crazy cyberpunk, you know, crazy insano penthouse apartment in Japan. You know, you've got this Japanese business guy. You know, all of this stuff. You know, you're gonna go you're gonna go storm this Osaka castle in Osaka, right? You're gonna kill the devil dogs, you know, or trick the devil dogs with your cunning, and you're gonna. You know, here's the other thing about this Wolverine thing is the success of this and the reason usually young dudes and now old dudes love Wolverine is the same reason they like Snake Eyes, right? I feel that the Snake Eyes hero's journey of Snake Eyes is very similar to the Wolverine hero's journey, and a lot of it also is because. You know, you got Larry Hama, Vietnam. I believe he's a Vietnam vet. You know, Chris Claremont wasn't a Vietnam vet. Neither was Frank Miller. But they were tapping into that whole. I think it was just because you had a lot of dudes coming back from Vietnam, and you know, so that whole thing. And you had young kids that would listen to stories of the older dudes coming back, telling stories of Vietnam. And then you just sprinkle in some ninjas. You know, sprinkle in some ninjas, sprinkle in some samurais, sprinkle in the hot Japanese chick, sprinkle in Osaka Castle, sprinkle in, Storm Shadow, sprinkle in, a guy who's a silent assassin, you know, all that's, this is Mac Bolan. I don't know if you know who Mac Bolan is, but this is Mac Bolan on 11. And so was Snake Eyes' story. Mac Bolan on 11. Mac Bolan is a series of novels that were written, Donald Pendleton, I think is his name. He's passed away, I'm pretty sure. I think they still produce them today under, like, different writers, but it's like, basically it's men's romance novels, men Harlequin novels. Instead of some, you know, chick who's the heiress of the fortune, you know, who's banging the young, you know, dude who's cleaning up the stables, right? Some hot young dude who's banging the, you know, it's not that kind of, that's for women, right? This is male porn right here. This is male power fantasy porn where, this is Harlequin novels for men where you just want to go and just kill everybody. You know, everybody who's wronged you, has pissed you off, you just want to take your claws and just, you know, shred the pieces. So, you know, you want to go in, you want to sneak into the castle, you know, and save the Japanese princess and kill all the samurai in there, you know. I got to have the also the thing that's going through my head right now is the opening of Ninja 3, The Domination with Shokasuke, where it's going bing, 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 like that weird, whatever that instrument is, and bing, 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 because I see the statue of Buddha. That's what it totally reminds me of. And here's the thing is, I saw this in '84, right? I read it. I couldn't read very well. I looked at the pictures and saw a few words. But you didn't have to read these words. I didn't need to know what's going on. I could tell. You see Wolverine, there's this Japanese girl in like her kimono, and then you've got the Buddha statue, right? That's all you need to tell me, right? I saw ninjas, I see samurais, you know, I see dude's kicking the shit out of everybody, right? You don't need words. It could be just like the Snake Eyes silent comic where he sneaks in to save Scarlet and, and beats the shit out of all the, or kills all of the Cobra dudes, right? Don't even need words. It's so hardwired into male DNA at that time. And, I don't know about young kids now. Here's the thing. Well, I'll get into that towards the end. I'll make my final comments on that and why this obviously doesn't fly today, and why my interest. My son and I are just like each other, right? I mean, there's so many similarities. Not funny. The thing is, he's growing up in a completely different time than I did, so he's not getting any of the. He's not getting ninjas up the yin yang. It's 1984, 1985, and it's ninja crazy, right? He's not getting, all of that stuff. Uzis and katanas and RPGs and Rambo and, you're not getting any of that, right? But all of that stuff, I mean, it was my diet back then, was all of that stuff. So I'm a completely different person than my son in those regards. And just like that's why our generation doesn't really resonate much with even the millennials or even zennials or any of the younger generations. We in that regard we're more like my dad's. Well, my dad's not a boomer; he was a lost generation. But the boomers and the lost generation. The World War II people. People born during the war. Anyways, so yeah. And speaking of. So yeah, let's say because I said 1985, we got our first VCR, a Betamax top-loading Quasar, and we lived in that one house apartment, and I went with my dad, and we went down, because we had to go to the party store, and buy the A&P there, downtown Rochester. Rochester Home Video was on the corner. I don't know if anybody remembers this, too, Rochester Home Video on the corner. And that was even there was Now Playing up by Kittyland, but we weren't going there yet. I was going there because it was close. Friday nights at my dad's house on the weekend. It's kind of like my son coming to he loves coming here, all the time and staying at his mom's. Why? Just like when I was with my dad. Pizza on Friday night. Of course, for him, it was pizza and booze. Pizza on Friday night. A couple of videos from Rochester Home Video. Go back to Dad's apartment and spend the whole weekend there and watch Revenge of the Ninja with Shokasuke over and over and over again. Eventually the Ninja Domination, Enter the Ninja, the American Ninja, 9 Deaths of the Ninja, Ninja's Assassin. Yeah, my son, my friend, the gifting friend, he still, to this day, razzes me. He says, "Hey, Tim, when are you ever going to write that ninja book you always kept telling me about?" Like I said, I read all the Stephen K. Hayes books. I read, because we had the Stephen K. Hayes books back then. The American guy that goes to Japan, marries the hot Japanese chick, comes back and has a compound, a training ninja compound in Ohio, right? It's like every dude's ultimate wet dream right there. And then you've got, and then the Shida Kim books, you know what I mean? Talking about, how to, mastering the art of, mind control. And of course then you got, Snake Eyes with his Arashikagni, the all-seeing eye. Oh my God. Ah! Just the 80s of that is just, you can just smell the 80s just coming out of me right there. But anyway, so let's back to the story. Like I said, I love the art. I think this is some of Frank Miller's best work. This is back when he could draw. He drew girls a little wonky in the face. He admits that he never could draw women right. He didn't draw a lot of cars. Didn't need to. Not a lot of cars in this. But sure as shit, man, he could. That right there looks like the cover of a Stephen K. Hayes book. You got the shoji screen. You got a bunch of shuriken. There's a book, Stephen K. Hayes, or was another one like the Death of the Ninja, or Art of the Ninja book on trying to teach you to be a ninja. And yes, at this exact time, I would say a couple of months later, remember my dad, he lived in that apartment, and he went away for a while. He was in the psychiatric hospital. He went in the psychiatric hospital for a while. He came out, and it's like, he's like, "Hey, I'm going to come pick you up." I hadn't seen him in a couple of months, and first thing I wanted to do, because of course, I'm a kid and I have no empathy. I'm just single-minded and only think of myself. I said, Dad, there's a place called Tigron Sports down a 9 Mile in Gratiot. Well, it was really close to Detroit. Remember, my dad didn't like to go to Detroit. He's like, oh, that's pretty close to Detroit. I go, it's a 9 Mile in Gratiot. It's called Tigron Sports. They got ninja uniforms there, and they got them in my size. I remember specifically because in 6th grade I was 4'11" and I weighed 85 pounds. My son weighs 105 now, and he's like 5 feet, right? And he's in 6th grade. My son's the same age as I was then now. So my son's going to be a lot bigger than I am. But I was 4'11", weighed like 90 or 80 pounds or something. You had to go by your height for ninja costumes. And so, yeah, my dad ended up taking me down there, and I got myself a ninja uniform. I got some tab-eye boots. I wanted the sword until the guy said, this is a real sword. This isn't a replica. These are actually razor sharp. My dad's like, Tim, I think you're going to wait on this sword thing. I don't know. It doesn't seem like a good idea. Sure, giving me a bunch of metal blades that I could whip into people, which never worked. Some nunchucks and whatever else, I had been drooling about in Black Belt magazine at the time. Got my Osaka Shokosuke poster on the wall from The Master with Stephen McAllister of Lee Van Cleef. Got to run the Octagon with Chuck Norris. Oh, the 80s. Sorry, I'm getting so sidetracked here. But yeah, that's what this comic is. Everything I'm telling you, right? That's what this comic is. It's that just oozes out of these panels. Everything I'm telling you, all those. I mean, you can see me now. I'm getting all worked up. All of that stuff is just oozes out of these pages. I would say this comic right here and that silent issue of G.I. Joe with Snake Eyes, infiltrating the Cobra Fortress. Those two comics right there, this comic and that comic, they're Bibles to 80s young 80s boys at that age, just about to hit puberty, and then it all goes downhill from there. But yeah, that's a great art. Loved all the imagery, all the very Blade Runner-esque, like cyberpunk Japan, Tokyo imagery. I think there's even another scene where it almost looks like the Ayakoro! I mean, the big Japanese woman, on the giant sign from Blade Runner. Yeah, so that's the first issue. Let's go to the second issue. We'll do it on time. 42 minutes. Okay, good. All right, now here's something weird. I got it in 10th grade. It was either 88 or 89. There was a place, my mom was dating this dude out in Waterford, Michigan, off of Dixie Highway. And my mom scared to death to drive all the time. Driving with my mom scared the shit out of me. If anybody's behind her, she'd have to pull over and let them go. So you imagine how long it took us to get anywhere. I gotta pull over. I can't have anybody behind me. And she would avoid any highway or any major road. We'd go through every subdivision to get anywhere we're going. She used to take me to school. That's why I learned of subdivisions, just because she would take me through like a maze of subdivisions to avoid any major roads. So to get to Waterford from Rochester, from the trailer there, was pretty difficult to do. So she would find a way to get all the way out there. And we would pass a place called Comics and Cards. It had a big Spider-Man mural painted on the side, like Captain America painted on the side of this white brick building. Single story, kind of little strip malls where it's just like 3 stores. It's like a Chinese food restaurant, Army Navy surplus store, and what do you call it? Comic book store. You could eat Chinese because for some reason Chinese food was as close to Japanese food as you had back then. I don't know how many times I'd go to Chinese food just by myself, just because I loved anything Asian. I just thought there was going to be a bunch of ninjas at a Chinese food restaurant. I didn't know this. I didn't know the difference between Japanese and Chinese at the time. Yeah, you get your egg rolls and your almond boneless chicken, which is a Michigan thing, by the way. I don't think anybody else has the almond boneless chicken. Oh, I love the almond boneless chicken. I'll go for that right now. place, the Star Diner down, Star Chinese down the street for me. They've got that. It's like $20 though for the dinner, but whew, and the MSG and salt in that. Oh my God, that's good stuff. But anyways, get your egg roll, your wonton soup, and then head over to the GI Surplus. The Joe's Army Navy is one in Pontiac. That was the big one, but GI Surplus was on right next to this comic shop, and you go in there and get yourself a pair of nunchucks and a couple of throwing stars, and then go over and grab a few comic books at the comic book place, and then head on over to my mom's boyfriend so I can sit there and watch Star Trek reruns all the time while they have sex in the bedroom. Anyways, so we stopped at this store, this comic shop, and I go in there, and they had shirts. And at the time, like, comic book T-shirts were hard to find. Everything was hard to find back then. They didn't have comic backing boards. Comic book shirts were hard to find. When you found a comic book shirt, you go, holy shit. My friend, the Ruther friend, he had a real cool Watchmen T-shirt. I had to have some cool T-shirts too. And one of the T-shirts had a red T-shirt. I wish I still had it today because it was an extra. I took an extra large then. This is a double extra large. I could probably sort of fit into it if I stretched it out. But yeah, it had a red T-shirt and it had this cover. This just the image, not the cover. It didn't say Wolverine. It's just the figure. I imagine just Tim. I'm pointing at this like you can see my hand on the screen. Here, I'll use the mouse. So it's just the image of Wolverine. Take out the blue background, everything, and just put that on a red T-shirt. It was $9.99. And my mom was really easy for clothes. She wouldn't buy me a bunch of comic books and she wouldn't buy me a bunch of action figures. But if I said, "Hey, Mom, can I get that shirt?" She's like, "Oh," she loved buying clothes because she was obsessed with buying clothes herself, right? So I just gave her a reason to buy clothes. I could get her to buy a bunch of. I had a bunch over at the GI Surplus. I remember I had a bunch of crazy shirts that I actually had to. I got sent home from school because I had shirts that said like "Kill a commie for mommy," What was the other one? Kill a commie for mommy was the one that got me sent home from school. I don't know why. It was the 80s. We hated the communists back then, but for some reason they didn't think that was appropriate for junior high. Neither was, what was it? Something, mess with the best, die like the rest. All these, like, don't tread on me, like these, like, overtly Michigan militia, I guess they'd call them alt-right today. These alt-right T-shirts. I had a bunch of those. It had a skull. It had an M60 and a rocket launcher and maybe that was communist. So we had an M60 and a M16 and an Uzi and a skull wearing a green beret or a red beret or a black beret, and it said, mess with the best, die like the rest, or kill a commie for mommy. Had a bunch of cool T-shirts like that. Like I said, they got me in trouble. Sorry, that was high school. That wasn't junior high. I must have got those shirts from. I don't think my mom would have bought those shirts. I think my dad got me those shirts because my dad was pretty. He was of a certain mentality. Let's just put it that way. Anyways, because I was junior high that I was at West, because West was pretty conservative. Well, conservative liberal. I don't want to get into all that, but I'm just saying they were pretty. It's the rich school, and the rich school don't want a bunch of poor kids in there, with their, their what do you call it? Their anti-communist propaganda T-shirts. But anyways, God bless the frickin' 80s. I tell you, the 80s were a time. Anybody from any other countries that are watching that's how it was in America in the 80s, trust me. The young 11 and 12-year-old boys were freaking like programmed to be murder machines. Anyways, that T-shirt right there, that's the one I had. So I just wanted to go into that long tirade about that. The ninjas right off the bat, ninja. Oh, and then you got the assassin girl, the hot, short, short-haired Asian girl with the crazy body and like the skin-tight suit. Who's like a deadly super ninja herself. And crazy assassin. And then that's like his girlfriend because the other, princess chick, she's married some other guy. This is the whole story. It's like I said, it's a male. It's basically made for ex-Vietnam vets that have that fantasy, and then they're the young boys of the 80s that somehow secondhand got that weird fantasy through them, or through watching too many 80s movies. But there it is. That's a double page spread. Wolverine going out the window with these ninjas, all these hand ninjas. Of course, and also you notice, and if you don't know the story, those of you who do probably know, but it's where Ninja Turtles all came out of this, right? And I got this after I got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Other Strangeness, the video game, the role-playing game. And, Eastman and Laird, the Foot Clan, they're all making fun of the hand. It was all a parody, basically, of Daredevil at the time. Frank Miller Daredevil, and to some extent, the Wolverine miniseries. His faces on women are kind of, he drew the body pretty good. He really drew her body pretty good, but faces are a little wonky. I understand. It's Jinx. It's basically Jinx from G.I. Joe, from the G.I. Joe movie. Just take Jinx, and there you go. You got, I think her name was, I can't remember what her name is. It's funny, Glynis Wein, or however you say it, Lin Wayne's wife, she was like an editor, and she did a lot of coloring at Marvel at the time. But Lynn Varley, I saw in the first comic, I don't know, she's not credited anymore, only on the first issue. I don't know if Lynn Varley just did the covers, and Glynis did the interior coloring, but of course Lynn Varley, obviously Dark Knight and Ronin, that Lynn Varley, same Lynn Varley that him and Miller had a falling out with, and that whole fiasco with those two. I think she just does the covers. I think Glynis Wein does the interior art of these. But she was probably one of the best of the 80s colorists. She just seems that I loved her. She picks the best color choices and a lot of things. There we go. I mean, this is before Jim Lee. I mean, this Jim Lee was just ripping off Jim Lee, Rob Light, all those Image dudes that, everyone's like, oh, I love his Wolverine. Even Arthur Adams to a certain extent. Those dudes all just ripped off. Everybody loved it. This is, like I said, this is a Bible to most people. Look at the little butt on her. Jeez. See, he drew her body really nice, but her face was just kind of But anyways, sorry, I got distracted by the cakes there. Anyways, that's all. Miller did all that stuff. Paul, Jesus, awesome. Like when Paul Smith was doing like Wolverine fighting Silver Samurai in that issue. When him and Rogue go to Japan, which is right around this time, by the way. He's just taken all of that from all of that style's all coming from Miller's stuff. It's not. I'm not trying to take it from Paul Smith. I think it's great. I just think I'm looking at that. You got this. I could never be in this building for one thing. I would lose my mind with my fear of heights and vertigo. But if you didn't have that afraid of heights, it's all glass around. You're in Tokyo. You got some hot Asian ninja chick. They're attending to your wounds. Tell you, male power fantasy right there. He really liked to draw her backside a lot. Her face isn't terrible, but and then the other girl, he's thinking of the other girl so he's in love with the basically the daimyo, or the one dude's daughter, and then and they're in love, but she's married to, he set her up with some other guy for some arranged marriage, and then she's supposed to kill Wolverine. She's hired to kill Wolverine, but then she ends up falling for Wolverine, so she loves Wolverine, but Wolverine still has still has eyes for this girl, still in love with her. It's like this weird kind of love triangle too. Even though it's a male power fantasy and it's not a Harlequin romance novel, there's no shortage on the menage a trois, or the love triangle. There's no shortage of that. It's just like the Wolverine. Scott Summers, Jean Grey love triangle. It's Chris Claremont. I mean, Chris Claremont's, he's basically he's got one foot in Harlequin romance novels, the other foot in Macball, and together, they rule the world. So, Yukio is the other girl. What was her name? I can't remember. I just read the book and I forgot her name. Like I said, I had, even though when I first got it, like I said, I couldn't read it very well. I did, when I got this, when I was in like 8th grade, I ended up reading this finally. Read it a couple of times, and so I knew the story. But I haven't looked at it and read it in a long, 30-some plus years, so it's kind of, some of the stuff I forgot about some of it. It was confusing, though. There was some confusing parts in it where I was just kind of like, it's done really well, but I don't know, there's some kind of stuff that wasn't handled perfectly. So when Quentin Tarantino does the one-to-one translation of this movie, he's going to have to fix a few things. More breaking into back in place. You got a kabuki theater in here. Remember when I showed you my my tour of my apartment, and right behind the camera there, you looked at my my bachelor's degree. What's it in? It's in East Asian Studies, Japan. Now, granted, I got that 10 years out of high school, so anime had hit. And so all of the kids who were 10 years younger than me, and all of my Japanese classes and everything, they were all screaming otaku, anime fans, right? I liked anime, but remember, I liked the old stuff. And the motivations for people to be in that classroom, I would say 90% of the class, were all about Naruto. I like Naruto and whatever. Again, I gotta say something about Naruto because he's a ninja in regards to this, but or regard to the 80s just in general. But Naruto, all that stuff that was popular in like the late 90s, early 2000s. Well, to early 2000s when I was in college. That's all their motivation. My motivation for wanting to study Japan, was this stuff. Was ninjas, all of the trappings you see that I keep talking about, right? The fantasy of moving to Japan as an American gaijin, just like he's a Canadian gaijin. And then falling in love with the hot Japanese girl, and it's forbidden love, and and her family doesn't know if, I don't think you should be messing with the white dude, and then at the same time you're training to be a ninja too, so you got to go there and learn your Iaido and your ninja skills from some, national treasure, some master, that was my Japanese power fantasy. It wasn't Naruto. It wasn't all of the fill in the blank other late 90s, early 2000s anime. Right, that wasn't what I was really into. I mean, there's some aspects of some of that in there, but not really. Mine was I wanted to meet a what do you call it? Sailor Mars, who also is Motoko from Love Hina. What do they call him? Shrine Maiden. I wanted to meet the hot Shrine Maiden. That's what I wanted. I'm going to have to go hang out at all the Japanese shrines when I get to Japan, and I'm going to wow all of the hot Shrine Maidens with my just coolness. Yeah, none of that happened. All of that. It was all my delusions of grandeur and my delusional mind thinking all that stuff's going to happen. Like I said, got a degree. Don't speak the language. Never been to Japan. The only reason my son is half Asian is because he's half Korean, because my ex-wife was adopted 100% Korean. So that was as close to having my Shrine Maiden, which totally didn't work, and the marriage failed. But I still got my son out of the equation, so there you go. Got my half Asian son to fulfill that part of my weird, pipe dreams as a kid. Didn't work out how I wanted to. Anyways, let's keep going here. yeah, the hats and Big Trouble in Little China. I keep thinking of Big Trouble in Little China because of the hats. And this, I believe, it was '82. It's before Big Trouble. This Big Trouble came out right about that same time, '84. And of course, that was Chinese. But again, this is back in the day. This is the '80s. Everything was just Asian. You didn't know if it was Japanese and it was Korean. You didn't know. I mean, I sort of knew because I knew about like martial arts and stuff. It's like, oh, that's Iaido, and that's where did I learn about that? Comic books. Oh, that's Iaido, and that's Kung Fu. That's Wing Chun Kung Fu, and that's Jeet Kune Do, and that's Taekwondo, and that's Hapkido, and whatever, fill in the blank, every other stuff that actually wasn't just this. It was Black Belt magazine. Again, I need to do at some point. I can't find them. Like I've got all those Starlog magazines. I've got all the Dragon magazines. I've got all the heavy metal magazines. But what I can't find is all the Black Belt magazines. Sure, there was those Ninja magazines. I only had like maybe 20 or 30. It was very short-lived. But the Black Belt magazine, that was the Bible. That was the one where it's like, I want to train to be an assassin and kill people. That was the cool magazine to have. You sit there at the bookstore and you're just drooling, dreaming, oh, I want all those ninja stars. And I want all those nunchucks. And, oh, sais. Oh, what are those? Oh, butterfly swords. Oh, what is this? Oh, there's a ninja toe, which doesn't exist. A ninja toe. Again, all like I said, even though I make fun of all like the the millennials and stuff with their craziness, or Gen Z with their love of anime and stuff. Don't get me wrong; those dudes are still going to go to the Paper Tiger, which is like the only store left in a dying mall. It's like, oh, I need incense, a dragon statue, and a katana. There we go. Where are we going to go? Let's go to Paper Tiger at the dying mall. There's a food court that's closed. There's a Bed Bath & Beyond, Spencer's. Nope, Hot Topic's gone. Is there... Oh, Hollister's gone. What else is there? Oh, everything's gone. Yeah. But the Paper Tiger, which is like some... Just... the Paper Tiger is owned by this questionable guy that I've known He's like of that age bracket, that ex-Vietnam kind of, turbo diesel guy who's all about making money, and he's selling his wolf blankets and his dragon statues, his incense, and his katanas at the mall. It's crazy how things are. Just all that stuff makes me laugh. So there we go. Let's go to, what do we got on time? Oh, it's been an hour. Okay, these are the two comics I read this afternoon, so I'm just going to whip through them real quick. Russell's a sumo guy, throws him through a window, blah, blah, blah. She comes back. She ends up, he's drunk. And there's this flashback thing, craziness with the feudal Japan, which I just love that panel. When I was a kid, that was so cool. And then Wolverine all riddled, doing the whole, what was it, when did this? Was this Seventh Samurai this happened, where the guy gets just filled with arrows, or was that Ron? I can't remember. One of those Akira Kurosawa movies. Yeah, so I had to watch a lot of Akira Kurosawa movies to get my art cinema, or my Japanese cinema class passed, and it was a 400 level class to get my bachelor's. And then there was my Japanese art class, Art of Japan, with Mrs. Yamazaki, who was as white as I am, who was married to a Japanese dude, and she was a piece of work, too. Anyways, you had to watch all that stuff. Actually, she taught both classes. She taught Asian film, and she taught or Japanese film, Japanese art. I got 4.0s in both those. I got straight A's in both of those. I can't even tell you anything about what stuff that I got. So I memorized it and forgot it all. But yeah, we had to watch a bunch of... I can't remember. There was another Kurosawa movie we watched. But anyways, whatever the one where the guy gets riddled with arrows. Kind of that, oh, she's got the all black. She's got like Rogue's costume without basically taking Jinx, throw her into a Rogue's costume, take just the black bodysuit. Oh, it's good stuff. Really easy way to draw. You don't have to draw any detail. You just draw this silhouette. Love it. See the darkened eyes? That's all Frank Miller stuff. That's all before. That's where Jim Lee got all this stuff. He got it all off Frank Miller. It's totally... Oh, it's Jim Lee drawing. No, it's Frank Miller. Like I said, I mean, as much as I bag on Frank Miller for... No, there's more... But, I mean, he's... You can't deny his talent. I mean, he's the one who did all this stuff. I mean, he brought all this stuff in the forefront. And to his credit, this is the Frank Miller that I like. So yeah, there's that. He said, oh, okay. Basically, the end of the story is, I can't remember. He ends up killing her dad, the father guy, the main bad guy, and then she ends up getting away. And then he ends up, I'm assuming that's, yeah, because it ends on Arya kills him, blah, blah, blah. It ends with him sending a wedding invitation back to the X-Men and saying, you know, they're going to get married. I think in X-Men he ends up showing back up with her, and he's got the kimono on or whatever, or he's got his crazy costume, crazy clothes that he wears. But yeah, so that's the book. Go back to the full screen here. So again, you know, keep it. I'm sure they got it's this. They include this in one of the omnibuses, one of the and I think one of the essentials might have this part of it. So one of the X-Men, the collecting X-Men, they threw this because it kind of ties into that, even though it's a solo story. I think even the other one too, the Kitty Pryde and Wolverine. I got to do the Kitty Pryde and Wolverine one sometime as well. But yeah, so the that's the version I had from 1987, and I believe this is a 19. Well, I'm falling over. I feel like it was thicker as a kid, but again, you know, there's lots of stuff that I feel was bigger when I was a kid, but when I got this, I was, you know, I was a teenager. I mean, my hands haven't really grown too much from, like, say, like 15 years old to now. I mean, as far as the size of my hands, sure, the size of my belly's gotten bigger, but I mean, the size of my hands I don't feel are too much bigger. I just feel like this was thicker and bigger. The Long Shot book seems normal, and so does the Tales of Asgard. That one seems to be the right size, but this one just seems small. I mean, you know, it's only 4 issues, so maybe that's what it was. I just feel like it was bigger. Oh, I'd love to have that T-shirt, and I'd love to have that poster back. That'd be pretty cool, but those are, I don't want to go chase those things down. All right, so let me end it here because it's been over an hour. I'm going to probably do this one soon. If not, this will be my next video. I'll probably record a couple of them over the weekend. That's probably when I'll do this one. Probably read this one tonight and tomorrow night. I don't like to read it all in one go. I like to digest it a little bit and enjoy it over a course of a few nights. That's how I originally read this when I first read it. So I really like this book. Really love the art. I think it's great. I think it's new modern art, and it's overbaked and blah blah blah. But it just, for some reason, and obviously you're gonna know, if you know this book, you know why I like it. And of course I'll get more into that as I do the video on it. But this will be next. And I've got CBRs to show you guys all the interior art, that type of thing. But all right, let me end that one there. Remember I said like and subscribe. Get a thumbnail going for this video and get that up. Again, like I said, you got anything you suggest comics you want me to read or look at or whatever, I'm willing to take a look at anything. You know, if you give me a good, just, you know, say, hey, you really like that Wolverine thing, maybe you'll like this thing, right? Because you could find something that I've never heard of. You know, it's like the Angel album. Find the Angel album of comics for me. How about that? All right. Again, I got the. I'm gonna try to shoot a little video on that record convention I'm gonna go to this weekend. You know, what'd be nice is if they do. Somebody said they do comics at another Legion Hall. It's relatively close. They said they do sports cards and comics, but and I got to find out where that is. But I would love to see I love them to do that at that little Legion Hall where they do the records. That'd be awesome. It's just walking distance. I just love that. You know, I would get back into trying to track down, so, you know, like the originals. These will be expensive, but even newer stuff, you know. Like go track down some comics, you know, some newer comics and grab a hold of some of those. I just love to get back into that. I would probably get into sports cards again just because I'm kind of done with sports. I could care. I mean, even hockey. As much as I loved hockey, and I loved hockey, I don't really. I could care less who wins the Stanley Cup. I have no idea of any of the players. I'm sure they're all Swedish and Russian at this point. And I know Ovechkin still plays. He's like the only. You know, I think even Lindstrom's retired. I don't know anybody on the Red Wings, to tell you the truth. Like, it could be all, and they're all like 19-year-old kids, right? I don't want to see a bunch of 19-year-old kids. But anyways, yeah, all my heroes from hockey, they're all either dead or or retired or head coaches now or whatever. All right, but I will catch you guys later and see you in the next video. All right, bye bye.